I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of Old's Oscar Countdown. The support you guys have been showing on the videos has been great, so keep that up. Leave your comments down below. I love hearing your guys' Oscar predictions and thoughts as we go through in such a crazy year. But if you're new to the series, what I do every single week is break down a new Oscar category and give my predictions for the nominations. However, this is still an awards show channel, so we're going to be giving later on in the coming months Golden Globe predictions, Golden Globe nominations, reactions, things like that, just to keep you up to date on what will eventually, and in some way or another, affect the Oscars and the sort of awards race that we find ourselves in every year. But in such a strange year, it's going to be hard to decipher, which is why you're going to come to this channel and I can give you my analysis and my thoughts on what I think is going to happen based on my previous 5 years of Oscar experience now, doing this channel and giving you my analysis and thoughts. And I've grown as a person and I've been able to develop my opinions and understanding of it, and now I think I have a solid understanding of it. So just jumping right into it, this video is going to be my best actor predictions. Now, this is not my final predictions. This is also not a video that are going to be my final 5. I am going to give a final Oscar predictions once we get closer to the nominations day. But this is where the race stands right now. And then as we sort of evolve and go into coming weeks, I'm going to be talking about the Connor's Corner section at the top of the show, where I give my rising and falling movies. But right now we're a little bit too early, so I do want to just mention that's going to be coming back, just not right now in these episodes. So jumping into my first pick, I've got Chadwick Boseman from Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Now, this is a posthumous performance from the late, great Chadwick Boseman, and this is a situation that actually doesn't happen as often as you think. The last two acting winners were Heath Ledger for The Dark Knight and Peter Finch in 1976 for Network, both posthumous, both died after their movies were released. So this is a unique scenario where the movie was released after he had passed away. But it's a situation where, we think of actors that we've lost too young, someone like Philip Seymour Hoffman or Robin Williams, and those guys don't get the sort of posthumous awards because they don't really have a big Oscar movie. But every time, like The Dark Knight or Network, we get a big Oscar movie like we do here with Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and such a dynamic performance, it oftentimes not only gets the recognition from the nomination, but also the award win. And I think that's what's going to happen here with Ma Rainey. Even though it's called Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Chadwick Boseman, in my opinion, is very much a lead actor, and he's the sort of lead actor of this movie. I think he actually even gets a little bit more screen time than Ma Rainey. He gets all the elements of a great sort of classic Oscar performance. Even if he hadn't even died, I think he could have won, because he's a young actor. That doesn't actually work for actors, more actresses, but it's still sort of an important factor that he was Black Panther, that he is this sort of movie star. Based on this August Wilson play in which the dialogue is lyrical and really wonderful and snappy. It very much feels like a play, but it allows the actor to really bring a lot. And he has one incredible speech, really a couple incredible speeches throughout the movie because of that sort of play-like structure, and really nails it. So he has these monologues at the Oscars, like these big speeches that we see in the reels, the Oscar speech, which is most commonly referred to. These things are important, and Chadwick does have it within this performance. Oh, also, it's in a movie that's going to be very well liked within the Academy, multiple nominations. It's by Netflix, so there's a strong studio behind it in terms of the Oscar campaign. Oh, also, unfortunately, he passed away, so it's another wrinkle towards his campaign. In my opinion, it'd be very surprising if Chadwick doesn't win an Oscar. It could, in some alternate universe, win for Da 5 Bloods for Best Supporting Actor, but I think right now it's pretty clear that it's going to be for Best Lead Actor for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Not only do I think will get nominated, but I think this will win. So pencil this in, check your odds makers, because I think Chadwick Boseman should eventually win on Oscar night. I'm calling that right now, just because of all the additional factors he has for him, and it seems like this is his last year, and I think this will be his year. But then my number 2 pick, I have Anthony Hopkins from The Father. This is a movie that was saw all the way back in Sundance, but it's been delayed. We thought it was maybe going to come out on Christmas, and now it's actually been pushed back to, I think, February 26th. So that's a movie that, and the Oscars eligibility is the February 28th. So it's really being pushed to the last second. However, this is a movie that people have been seeing, that people have seen. And what they say is that Anthony Hopkins is sort of the central performance. That's really a two-hander. I think the movie's going to be very well liked because it is Olivia Colman and Anthony Hopkins, two former acting winners. Anthony Hopkins, I believe, has been nominated 5 times. And of course, he won for his performance in The Silence of the Lambs in '91, but was also nominated just last year for The Two Popes. So it's very likely that I think in a movie, The Father, that's very well liked, a performance, the central performance, the father, being Anthony Hopkins, and of course the movie is also about dementia, so I think that will resonate to the older members of the Academy. And I also think that Anthony Hopkins, from what I've heard, I haven't seen the movie, but delivers a really terrific performance. That it's a sort of very intensive, character-driven performance. That, and and we've seen previous performances about mental illnesses win before, even going back to someone like Dustin Hoffman for Rain Man, or more recently with the Alzheimer's situation with Still Alice from Julianne Moore, and even the 1 year last time we saw a sort of dementia older movie with Amour back in 2012, I believe, Emmanuel Riva almost won for Best Actress. That was sort of the worry, was that she was going to upset. So these sort of roles do well. This is a movie that'll be well liked from a guy that they like in a great performance. So I think The Father is a real solid lock here for the nomination as well, as long as the father buzz sort of sticks around. And with that later release, I do think it will ultimately. Now with my third pick, I'm going to go with Gary Oldman from Mank. Mank is a movie that's sort of hard to read right now. It's kind of falling in a lot of people's estimation. It didn't do too well in the Netflix top 10, which shows us what place the movie is being watched in. If it was the #1 movie, it didn't really stay in there for too long. So that's maybe suggesting it's not maybe well liked by a lot of people, the sort of general public, but also members of the Academy. We're not exactly sure how they feel. We know how the critical community feels, which is not totally positive. We wanted this to be sort of a sweeping, 100% kind of a film for it to do well at the Oscars, but now, especially within the critical community, it's sort of missing out on a lot of things like David Fincher or Picture, or just not even getting nominated or represented in these critics groups. Now, I still think it will get nominated. I think I've been likening it to something like The Irishman or Roma, the sort of Netflix auteur-driven big personal project that often does get recognized, and I think this will get recognized. I still think Fincher will get recognized. Seyfried, I think, has a strong chance still to win supporting actress. But in general, the movie is falling. It's not sort of the clear frontrunner. It's divisive. It's still, some people feel like it's homework, that it's boring. Now, we still don't know how members of the Academy will feel. We've heard some sort of little speakings that they have enjoyed it, but maybe not everyone. And it is a little bit concerning that both the critical and even the audience score has been pretty mixed on the film. Now, that's not to say it doesn't have a good Rotten Tomatoes score, but within the critics group, it's not being celebrated as one of the best movies of the year. And even within the audiences, I think it's kind of a mixed film. But that being said, I still think Gary Oldman's going to get nominated here. I still think it's a movie that's going to get a lot of technical stuff, and I still think Fincher can get in, and I think that Seyfried's such a strong performance in Mank is so memorable in the movie. I mean, if the members of the Academy like Mank, and I think enough of them will, they're going to like Gary Oldman. They're going to like Mank, because that's who the movie is about. And I also, frankly, just believe in Gary Oldman. He's a guy that is also well respected within the Academy, and just 3 years ago won for Winston Churchill pretty handedly. So in a movie that I expect to still get nominated heavily, I still think Gary Oldman can get in for the nomination here. And also the type of role that he gives. There's these sort of great Hollywood speeches, just dropping names left, right, and center that the Academy members, in particular, members of Hollywood, really appreciate and get those small little references, even just how the film is styled. And Gary Oldman is also an actor. When he talks about his process with David Fincher, sometimes they had to do up to 100 takes, which I think will draw sympathy from some of the actors in the acting branch. I also think this is a movie that has great dialogue, but also these great speeches. I mean, Gary Oldman is Mank, who is a screenwriter, so he's able to sort of say things more eloquently than maybe we do in real life, and he's really great at having these long speeches and embarrassing himself and saving himself and being wise, sly, and smart. So I think that the character itself and the performance is a performance that would get nominated for the Oscars. Even though Mank is sort of slipping in terms of being maybe a front runner, I still think it's going to get nominated. I still think that Gary Oldman will get nominated, and this is a Best Actor year that is a little bit wishy-washy, but I still think when you have a powerhouse like Gary Oldman and a performance like that, and such a lead performance, I think he still gets nominated. Then my fourth pick, I went with Delroy Lindo from Da 5 Bloods, and similarly to Mank, Da 5 Bloods is a hard movie to read, also by Netflix, but released all the way back in March, meaning that by the time the Oscar ceremony will happen, it will be over a year since many of the members maybe have even first saw it. Now, it could be a rewatch scenario, but there's also a lot more questions to the movie. The sort of big question was that Delroy Lindo, his character in Da 5 Bloods, is a Trump supporter, wears a Make America Great Again hat, and if we're assuming that Hollywood is mostly liberal, they may feel maybe uncomfortable with the assumption that to vote for a Trump supporter. But now that Trump has lost the election, maybe they'll feel a little bit more maybe sympathetic apathetic or won't be less worried about that thing because it's not sort of looming within the larger culture. But that being said, I also have some other questions, which is why he's sort of down on the fourth, because it's a great performance. The people who have seen the movie, including myself, go, wow, Delroy Lindo, he's an incredible performance. Like, we forget how good he is, and, he's a standout for him. I'm not entirely a big fan of how the character was ultimately treated, but his performance is really engaging, invigorating, and that's the thing you think of, for the most part, when you walk out that movie. That was sort of the consensus. Delroy Lindo is the man. Now, another question I have, though, is he a guy that the Academy really likes? I mean, he's never been nominated for a BAFTA or a Golden Globe or a SAG, and he hasn't even been nominated for an Oscar. So is this someone that they sort of appreciate? We're not exactly sure. It's a great performance in a movie that I don't think will get a lot of nominations. I still think it'll get a couple, but it has been falling. It may just be forgotten by the Academy members. And I still think that he does get it, ultimately because I think the performance is so memorable in a movie that they will be watching. I mean, it's still in contention for things like screenplay and production design, and even Spike for director to a lesser extent. But also the sort of recent success he's gotten with the critics groups, I think, is giving him a little bit more momentum and giving him a little bit more of a reminder. And he needs these critics groups to remind people that, hey, Delroy was really great. But in a year that's so uncertain, in a movie, To Five Bloods, that I'm not entirely sure about, Delroy Lindo, a guy who's never been nominated before, could sort of be forgotten, unfortunately. But it's hard to say right now, just because the performance is so dynamic, because To Five Bloods is still in the conversation. I still think he slips in there. And then with my fifth pick, I'm going to go with Yeun from Minari. This is a movie that was released all the way back in Sundance, but has sort of gained a steady critical and commercial sort of appreciation, and I think will do well within the Academy. And the sort of fifth pick that's been rising recently is Riz Ahmed from The Sound of Metal, which is a movie I really liked, but I still think is sort of in the honorable mentions right now because particularly Minari is a movie that should do well, I think, at the Oscars. The sort of lazy comparison, but also an apt comparison in certain ways, is The Farewell. Why? Because this is another A24 movie about Asian Americans released at Sundance and sort of having this sort of indie buzz. And usually these type of movies, even though The Farewell got shut out, it was a little bit surprising. And I think these movies generally, particularly A24, they will get in for something like screenplay. So let's say Minari gets in for screenplay, which I think it will. Then you go, okay, well, maybe it gets in for Best Supporting Actress. That's another category it's contending in, similarly to The Farewell, and then maybe it gets in for Picture. So if it gets into a couple of these places, I mean, Yeun is sort of the most recognizable name from the movie, and I think also would sort of slip in. I actually think he has a better chance than the Supporting Actress just because he has a little bit more name brand recognition being in movies post The Walking Dead, which of course is a huge series, but being in movies like Burning and Okja, he has been sort of developing a really interesting career for himself. So seeing him in Minari here, I haven't seen the movie yet, but I'm very excited too. But as a sort of stoic member of this Korean family moving to America in the 80s, I think it will sort of play both in the international sense, but also within the American members of the Academy. I think the actors have been sort of slowly watching and appreciating Yeun's choices, so I think they'll want to reward him here. And I just think that Minari is a stronger film, and he's the most recognizable name from a stronger film, and I think he gets in here for her sort of stoic lead kind of performance. Then, like I mentioned before, my in the running picks, my first being Riz Ahmed from The Sound of Metal, who I really hope gets nominated because he gives a terrific, really vulnerable, angry, complex performance here in a great movie about a man who has hearing loss and starts to go deaf and has to sort of adjust and adapt to that lifestyle. And similar to Yeun, Riz Ahmed has also been developing a really great career in movies like The Night Of and Nightcrawler and Rogue One, and is doing great work over and over again. I think finally people are starting to realize how great of an actor he is, and it's in a movie that's also going to be smaller, but ultimately the distinction I made was Minari, I think, is going to be a stronger film within other nominations, where The Sound of Metal, even though I'd love to see someone like Paul Raci get in for Best Supporting Actor, I still think it'll probably only get the one nomination if it does get nominated. And I also have some concerns over, is Riz Ahmed, famous enough or well liked within the Academy? Is this going to be a movie seen enough times within the Academy? It's hard to judge right now, but he is still someone in the running because of how well he's doing in critics groups and how well the sort of appreciation of people who have seen Sound of Metal always talk about, wow, Riz Ahmed is the sort of standout from this movie and gives a really terrific performance in a movie that will be liked. It's just, I'm not sure how many people within the Academy will see it, which is why I have it right here, just in terms of below Yeun for Minari. And then my final sort of in the running pick, I went with Tom Hanks from The News of the World. I've been saying it constantly, but I think The News of the World is a pretty serious contender. I think it's sort of a straight down the middle, classic Hollywood Oscar movie that in recent years, there's always a slot for that. I mean, in a certain way, The Shape of Water was kind of that. Last year, Ford v Ferrari, these sort of classic Hollywood, usually more masculine, below the line kind of movies do get nominated as well for Best Picture. Now, they don't necessarily always get nominated for actor. Guys like Christian Bale or Matt Damon didn't get in. And even someone like Tom Hanks is, the reason why he's down here is also because he doesn't get nominated that often. You know, he didn't get nominated for Captain Phillips in Tom Hanks and Paul Greengrass's last collaboration back in 2013, and has been missing out on key roles like Sully or Bridge of Spies. So it could be a situation where, oh, maybe they don't want to nominate him, but it's also a situation where Tom Hanks is still really well liked. He's been doing great work. They're in a movie. He's in a movie that people really like. It's not a super flashy performance. It's more subtle in that respect, but also, you know, if this is as big of a movie as I think, picture, director, screenplay, he could slip in as well in supporting actress. And if it gets sort of a lot of the technical awards, it could sort of sweep and Tom Hanks could get in here. But I am a little bit hesitant at the time because Hanks has been sort of continuously snubbed. But maybe we're turning a corner because last year he got nominated, of course, for A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood for playing Mr. Rogers. So it's an interesting dilemma, interesting dichotomy. So hard to judge. But right now, I still feel confident in my 5. It could change all the way. All it takes is, you know, Delroy, Lindo to miss out on SAG and Tom Hanks to get in. And then all of a sudden, boom, News of the World is well liked. Tom Hanks, he's going to get in too. There's still going to be that lingering doubt, but he could still get in. So it's hard to say which of the indie movies that they'll like. Is it Riz Ahmed and Sound of Metal? Is it more Minari and Stephen Yeun? Where will that sort of support lie? We'll see in the coming weeks from critic groups and SAGs, and that's why you stay tuned to this channel. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss a video. These videos come out Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern time, but also there's going to be multiple videos in the coming weeks when we talk about Golden Globe nominations and things like that. I have timestamps in the description below if you want to hear me sort of jump around and hear about my different takes on different people, just to make it easier on you. Once again, please comment below. I've really appreciating your support, and that's why I do the channel, is to create sort of a great Oscar community, and I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. But that's about it. Until next time, stay tuned.